Good morning, everyone, and at this time, will sergeants please start their recordings?
According to the computer or set.
Thank you.
Live recording is good.
Thank you.
Backup is rolling.
Thank you. And Sergeant Biondo, if you'd be able to start with your opening statement. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's remote New York City Council hearing on the Committee of Zoning and Franchises. At this time, would all panelists please turn on their video for verification? Once again, all panelists, please turn on your video for verification. And to minimize disruption, please place all electronic devices on vibrate or silent mode. If you wish to submit testimony, you may do so to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that is landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you, Chair. We are ready to begin.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Councilmember Francisco Moya, Chair of the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. I'm joined remotely today by Council Members Grodenchik, Borelli, and Powers. Today we will hold a public hearing for LUs number 712 and 713 for the Court District Zoning Text Amendment and Special Permit related to property in Councilmember Powers' district in the Theater District in Manhattan. But before we begin, I want to recognize the Subcommittee Council to review the remote meeting procedures.
Thank you, Chair Moya. I am Arthur Ha, counsel to this subcommittee. Members of the public wishing to testify will ask to register for today's hearing. If you wish to testify and have not already registered, we ask that you please do so now by visiting the council's website at www.council.nyc.gov to sign up. Members of the public may view a live stream broadcast of this hearing at the New York City Council website. When called to testify, individuals appearing before the subcommittee will remain muted until recognized by the chair to speak. Applicant teams will be recognized as a group and called first. Members of the public will be called and recognized as panels in groups of up to 4 names at a time. When the chair recognizes you, your microphone will be unmuted. Please take a moment to check your device to confirm that your microphone is on before you begin speaking. Public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per witness. If you have additional testimony you would like the subcommittee to consider, or if you have written testimony you would wish to submit instead of appearing before the subcommittee, you may email it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number and/or project name in the subject line of your email. During the hearing, council members with questions should use the Zoom raise hand function. The raise hand button should appear at the bottom of your participant panel. Council members with questions will be announced in order as they raise their hands, and Chair Moya will recognize nobody to speak. Witnesses are reminded to remain in the meeting until excused by the chair, as members may have questions. Finally, there will be pauses over the course of this meeting for various technical reasons, and we ask that you please be patient as we work through any issues. Chair Moya will now continue with today's agenda items.
Thank you, Arthur. I now want to open the public hearing on LU numbers 712 and 713 for the Court Theater proposal relating to property in Councilmember Powers' district in Manhattan. The proposal seeks a zoning text amendment and a zoning special permit pursuant to the amended text to grant a floor area bonus for the substantial rehabilitation and restoration of the Court Theater, which is designated individual and interior landmark, and also a listed theater under the Special Midtown District zoning regulations. The proposed action would facilitate the rehabilitation, restoration, and expansion of the Court Theater, as well as the development of a new use Group 5 hotel, utilizing the proposed bonus floor area and on the same zoning lot. Before we hear from the applicant, I would like, skip that. Council, if you could, please call the first panel for this item.
The applicant panel will include Julio Peterson and John Darby on behalf of the Schubert Organization, and Paul Selber and Adam Todman, Land Use Council, appearing on behalf of the applicant. Panelists, if you have not already done so, please accept the unmute request in order to begin to speak.
Council, if you got everybody on?
I see everyone.
Okay. So council, if you could, please administer the affirmation.
Panelists, please raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. We are in receipt of your slideshow presentation for this proposal. When you are ready to present the slideshow, please say so, and it will be displayed on the screen for you by our staff. Slides will be advanced for you when you say next. Please note that there may be a slight delay in both the initial loading and the advancing of slides. As a technical note, for the benefit of the viewing public, if you need an accessible version of this presentation, please send an email request to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. And now if the panelists would please restate your name and affirmation for the record. I'm sorry, if you could please state your name and affiliation for the record, you may begin.
Good morning. My name is Julio Peterson. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate for the Schubert Organization.
And I am John Darby, Senior Vice President, Facilities for Schubert.
Paul Selver, member of Kramer Levin, Naftalis, and we are Land Use Council to the Schubert Organization.
Adam Taubman from Kramer Levin, also Land Use Council to the Schubert Organization.
Great, thank you. Before you begin, I just want to recognize that we've been joined by Council Member Steve Levin. You may begin.
Thank you. Can you please bring up the presentation?
I will start now, Councilman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
As I said, good morning. My name is Julio Peterson. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate for the Schubert Organization. We're really excited to be here today to present the proposed rehabilitation, restoration, and expansion of the Court Theater. The project seeks to address all of the deficiencies of the existing theater and transform the building into a Broadway house for the 21st century. I will be presenting this application with John Darby, our Senior Vice President of Facilities, and Paul Selver, our Land Use Council. This project has broad support from organizations invested in the vitality and economic success of the theater industry and our greater city. Organizations that have provided support include the Association for a Better New York, Partnership for New York City, the Broadway Association, Times Square Alliance, 32BA, and a number of other organizations and local unions, including the Landmarks Conservancy. Letters of support from these organizations have been submitted for the public record. Lastly, I'd like to say that the rehabilitation of the Court Theater represents a unique opportunity for substantial investment in the theater industry at a critical time for our industry and for the city. By transforming the theater into a modern Broadway house capable of accommodating productions and audience members of all types, we are looking to prove to the world that Broadway is ready to come back stronger and bigger than ever. So we would really appreciate the council's support in supporting this project. I now turn it over to Paul Selver, who will address all the specific land use issues associated with this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio. Again, Paul Selver, Kramer Levin, Land Use Council to Schubert. Next slide, please. The Court Theater is situated on a zoning lot with approximately 47,700 square feet, shown here outlined in the dashed line, located between 6th and 7th Avenues, 47th and 48th Streets. It is a split lot divided between a C67T zone, which is a higher density avenue frontage zone, about 12,050 square feet, and a C6-5.5 zone, which is a high to moderate density commercial zone that exists in the mid-blocks in Midtown. It is in the theater sub-district core of the Special Midtown District. The zoning lot contains 4 building sites. The first is the Court Theater. The existing Court Theater is shown in the hatching in pink, and the site of the annex that will be developed as part of this application, if it is approved, is shown with the dots immediately to the left, west of the Court Theater. The second development site is in yellow. It is the site of the proposed Ryu Hotel that's being developed by Clarity. And that is the site that is receiving the development rights would receive the development rights from the Court Theater. And then there are two others, a development site, lot 55, which fronts on 48th Street in gray, that is now being developed by the McSam organization, and lot 7 on 47th Street, that is owned by Highgate Hotels and is the site of the existing, as of right, Night Hotel. There's no proposed redevelopment there at this time. Next slide, please. The proposed actions, as Councilmember Moya noted, are first a special permit under section 81-745 to authorize bonus floor area for the substantial rehabilitation of a listed theater, and also a zoning text amendment to that section to clarify the description of qualifying rehabilitation work and to allow for zoning lots that are partially in C6 5.5 districts, that bonus floor area that is generated on one portion of the zoning lot can be used anywhere on the zoning lot, regardless of the zoning district of the receiving site. Next slide, please. The proposed actions would allow Schubert to take full advantage of the 119,000 square foot bonus, and that would provide for also the opportunity to clarify what qualifies as bonus rehabilitation work. John Darby will now walk you through the existing conditions at the court and the issues that those conditions raise, and what is proposed to be done about them. John.
Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity to present our project. We're going to skip over the next few slides. The deficiencies at the Court of 1913 Theater are many, and we'd be glad to come back to any of those slides if any of the council members have questions later. If we can go to slide number 13, please. So the proposed theater rehabilitation program involves major structural changes and will address and remedy many or virtually all the significant shortcomings of the existing theater. The program includes upgrading of all of the infrastructure as well as some of the layout of the theater to bring it up to the standards of a modern house capable of handling both the plays that it has traditionally been there for, but as well as musical theater, which is the predominant art form these days on Broadway. Also, there will be a creation of a substantial amount of new space for patron amenities, also for back of house, backstage facilities, and front of house support facilities. There will be great improvements for audience circulation and for accessibility for people with disabilities. Lastly, we are doing a restoration of both the interior and exterior of the landmarked Court Theater. Next slide, please. The key to this rehabilitation is the vacant site adjacent to the existing theater that you see outlined in pink there. This has presented us with a unique opportunity for not only theater improvements, but for the expansion of space. Schubert's acquisition of the vacant site is a significant investment in Broadway at a critical time, both for the theater industry and the city. And the vacant site, along with what has been a 10-foot wide egress alley on the west side of the theater, will give the opportunity for a 35-foot wide annex building, a horizontal extension to the existing theater. Next slide, please. We're seeing here a street level floor plan. Now the annex and the existing building will be connected at many locations to improve functioning both back of house and for the audience in the front of house. Next slide, please. The proposed upgrades for back of house will increase the range of productions that the court will be able to accommodate, and it'll generally improve working conditions for both performers and crew backstage. The improvements include roughly doubling amount of wing space. You can see the wings highlighted in yellow to the left and right respectively of the playing area. And these are very important aspects of a stage, allowing for scene changes, for the movement of props on and off stage, for quick change, costume changes. And also they are, of course, the holding areas for the performers before they make their entrances. To date, the stage left wing at the court is less than 10 feet and totally inadequate for large productions. In addition to the improvement of the stage itself, on the right-hand side, you will see load-in door. We will actually have an enclosed area for safe scenery of safe storage of scenery and a better load-in when they're bringing shows into the theater, loading scenery in, a better load-in situation. Likewise, we will have improved stage door access, which will be via a corridor underneath the orchestra section that'll allow performers and crew to get straight backstage. Next slide, please. There will be substantially more dressing room area. You can see on the right the floor plans, kind of an exploded view floor plans of the existing theater and the much more capacious facility that'll result from the annex. Not only is a greater amount of dressing room space, but it enables the theater to have dedicated spaces for wardrobe operations as well as hair and wig operations. Okay. Next slide, please. The stage house will be totally reconfigured with new infrastructure for the rigging of scenery. The whole stage deck will be reconfigured with better access to trap area, the area underneath the stage, often used for special effects, and tremendous electrical infrastructure and other support for the productions. Next slide, please. Very unusually, the annex will allow an on-site rehearsal space, which will be on the top floor of the annex. And this rehearsal space will allow a space column-free with dimensions matching that of the stage. Next slide, please. Here's a rendering of that rehearsal space. Next slide. Similarly, in the front of house, there'll be vast improvements because of the ability to have expanded space for the theater. So the restrooms will more than double in capacity for the audience. At every level, they will be accessible for persons with disabilities. There will be more than 5 times the amount of area for lounges and refreshment bars compared to the existing theater. And there will also be greatly improved audience circulation with an elevator providing access to all levels. Next slide. And again, an artist's rendering of one of the main lounges at orchestra level. Next slide. I'll now briefly describe restoration work on the historic theater, the historic restoration. And what you see here is essentially the existing condition of the facade, which is in sore need of restoration. The marquee there is totally inappropriate, dating from the 60s, and the condition of doors, windows, etc., all are in need of help. Next slide. Similarly, the interior of the theater is very plain. It's nothing like it was originally. It's been able to accommodate shows, but not in the way of current Broadway standards. A lot of exposed infrastructure is in the way, detracting from the ambiance. You can see in the upper right picture, their arrow pointing to, there's a large duct passing right through the audience area. Okay, next slide. As part of the historic restoration of the exterior, the entire facade will be renovated and repaired, renovated, upgraded. There'll be new windows. There'll be a new historically appropriate marquee, new signage boxes, new doors. The facade will be totally restored. Next slide, please. Similarly, the landmarked interior will be brought back to with historically appropriate details. A lot of the exposed infrastructure will be hidden, removed, and the original palette derived from articles in the architectural press when the theater opened. That palette of coloration of the theater will be restored. And very uniquely, what's shown in blue in the proscenium arch, the surround of the proscenium opening, is a lattice work decoration that is backed up by art glass, which is in turn backlit. It's really a spectacular and unique feature on Broadway, and it hasn't really been seen in all its glory in years, and that'll be fully restored. Next slide. And lastly, as mentioned earlier, we will be able to hide all of the exposed infrastructure. So it will really just be the historic details, the historic architecture and ornament on the inside that the audience will see. And I'll turn it back to Paul Selber now.
Okay, thank you, John. Next slide, please. This is a quote from the zoning resolution 81745, and we've taken the liberty, we've taken the liberty of highlighting in red the fundamental criteria for the grant of the theater bonus. And we think that the work that we've described is very much on point to these findings. And I'm going to just cite a few examples. The first is the expansion of the theater by the construction of the annex improves its functionality by allowing the uses within the court to be unpacked from their existing cramped quarters and by giving them the space that they need, whether they're dressing rooms or wardrobe space or wings, whatever it is. All of that is made possible by the construction of the annex. The second is that the alterations and enhancements improve the court's commercial viability by giving it the capacity to be used as a musical house as well as a playhouse, allowing it to serve a wider range of performances. And a third is just more specifically, as John said, the work expands the stage wings, increases rehearsal and dressing room space, significantly increases the area and functionality of the lobby and its ancillary spaces, provides greater handicapped access than is required by law, and includes a comprehensive, high-quality historic restoration. So the scope and quality of this work, we believe, justifies the full floor area bonus proposed. Next slide, please. This is the zoning lot again. The court on the upper right-hand corner of the zoning lot, and the Riu Clarity Hotel directly below it, which is going to receive the development rights. Next slide, please. Go past this one. I'm sorry. So this one's, yeah, this one. Okay, the proposed hotel it would be 49 stories tall. It would be 524 feet in height and contain approximately 264,000 square feet of zoning floor area. This scale of the building is very much in context. It's lower than the News Court building to its east and almost the same height, within 10 feet of the height of the Times Square Edition Hotel to its west on 47th Street. With respect to the development on the zoning lot, both the Clarity Riu Hotel and the McSam Hotel, which you can see directly to the left of the Riu Hotel, it's labeled 34 stories, 331 feet, fully comply with the height and setback regulations of the Special Midtown District, ensuring that the bulk on the zoning lot will be distributed in a manner that provides for the light and air to the street and neighboring properties that is contemplated by the zoning resolution. I want to close with one further thought. This, as Julio said, has had a tremendous support from a wide range of organizations, civic organizations, and New York City supporting organizations and unions. You may hear an objection today as part of the hearing to approving the special permit and granting Schubert the full 119,000 square feet of development rights. As we understand the basis of this objection, it has to do with the hotel to which Schubert has agreed to sell the development rights. It has nothing to do with the theater or with the merits of this application. Moreover, and perhaps more importantly for the purposes of our discussion today, is the fact that denial of the special permit will not prevent the modernization, denial will prevent the modernization of one of Broadway's most historic houses, and in messaging and in fact, will harm only New York City's legitimate theater industry and the economic ecosystem that depends on its success. Denial or modification of this special permit will not in any way affect the construction of the hotel, which today has backup contracts to purchase any floor area that it cannot purchase from the court, either from one of the other owners on the zoning lot, or through an as-of-right transfer of theater development rights under Section 81744 of the zoning resolution. Now, you've all heard, and it goes without saying, that this is not a time to discourage people willing to invest in New York City. And this is especially true where the investment is in one of our signature industries, where it will generate or secure hundreds of union jobs in its construction and operation, and where it will not prevent or limit in any way other development on the zoning lot. It sends the wrong message, and it wastes a singular opportunity to upgrade the court and support the theater industry. We're happy to take your questions.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Before I turn it over to my colleagues, I just want to acknowledge that we have been joined by Councilmember Ayala and Rivera. Just a couple of questions. I know, Julio, you had mentioned this, but could you speak to the efforts that were made by you or the applicant team to engage the community support for this application?
Yes, thank you. We've reached out to folks who understand that the improvements that we're making are really substantial. And as I said earlier, we have broad support. We've reached out, we were able to get landmarks approval early on. We've reached out to a lot of different constituency group, not-for-profit theater companies, civic organizations, unions. We really reached out to a lot of different community folks. So I think we definitely made a very comprehensive effort at trying to make sure that folks bought into our project, which we think on its own merits is a fantastic project.
I just want to pick up on something, just add to what Julio said, and that is Community Board 5 does not very often recommend in favor of an application. And we were very pleased that they saw fit to support both the text change and the special permit in full in this case.
Great, thank you. Could you just clarify again for me the impact on the proposed hotel? How much floor area would be added? And what would be the difference as compared to the as-of-right hotel scenario? And without the transferred floor areas in terms of hotel floor, number of rooms, number of stories, et cetera?
Well, I think there are two different ways of looking at this. When we started out this exercise, and this was before the hotel had entered into backup contracts to acquire all the floor area it would need if the special permit did not go forward. But when we first started out, the difference would have been about 30,000 feet, which I think as compared to what would have been an as-of-right development of this. So in other words, as of right, the theater could transfer approximately 86,000 square feet floor area to the hotel. So that was there. what happened in the course of this process, and it was because of COVID and because of the fact that there were no city planning hearings. In fact, there were no certifications for 6 months because we were literally the project that was going to be certified the day city planning stopped certifying projects. The hotel, which was under construction, became concerned about its ability to support the floor area that it was building. And so it entered into contract with one of the other owners on the zoning lot to purchase 86,000 square feet of floor area from that owner, about that amount. And it entered into a contract, and this would be a contract with Schubert, but it would be for another theater to purchase the floating development rights that you can move around the theater district on an as-of-right basis. So today, on an as-of-right basis, you get exactly the same hotel that you have, that we're showing you today. There would be no difference. It would have the same floor area, the same number of rooms, and the same characteristics. They would just be sourced differently.
Got it. Thank you. And aside from the floor area transfer, can you just confirm that all of the buildings on this zoning lot would be in compliance with all applicable bulk, height, and setback rules?
They will be.
Okay.
That's part of the special permit site plan that we've agreed to, is that the McSam building, which I think already is very, very close to getting its approvals from the Department of Buildings on an as-of-right basis, and the Clarity Hotel, which has already gotten approvals for the envelope that it's operating in, it's developing under, are as of right and don't require any height and setback waivers.
Okay. And in its approval, City Planning Commission noted that the existence of approximately 82,000 square feet of remaining unused base floor area. Could you clarify whether and how this floor area could be used on this zoning lot in the future, if that's at all possible?
Sure. I mean, I should say, first of all, that when I used the number 86, was referring to that 82, and there may be some slight variations in the numbers involved here, but same order of magnitude. The 82,000 square feet is owned by the prior owner of the McSam site. And if they do not use it in the Clarity Hotel, they cannot use it on the zoning lot. They have to convey it. The terms of the special permit require that it be conveyed to another site through an 81-744 certification transfer. In other words, Rockefeller, the prior owner of that site, may own those development rights, but they actually are pertinent to the theater, and therefore they're eligible for transfer under 81-744. And that's what Schubert and Rockefeller would be required to do that for any use of the development rights other than for the Clarity Bowl. Okay.
This proposal also calls for an enormous floor area bonus to a new hotel, 120,000 square feet. The size of the hotel will make a huge impact on the special district, the special theater sub-district. Is this much additional floor area really necessary? And how will you make sure it benefits and preserves the character of the district?
Well, I think I'm going to ask Schubert to speak to the issue of what has to be done with the court, the magnitude of that exercise, because the court, because it is an interior and exterior landmark, has, and because it is so small and so old and so basically cramped, requires an awful lot of work to make it into what it needs to be. And that goes to two things. Number one, it goes to whether or not on the merits, under the standards that are set by the zoning, the work that is being done earns the special permit, earns the full bonus. And city planning looked at that. They had independent people look at that, and they concluded that it did. And then the second thing is, although it's not supposed to be relevant, but the part of the purpose of this special permit is to fund high quality, substantial rehabilitations of theaters that would qualitatively move them to a different place. And that's what's happening here. And without the full bonus, it couldn't happen in the way that's being proposed. In terms of the broader context of the theater district, this is a high density zone. The amount of floor area that we're talking about on this zoning lot is only 20% more than what the underlying zoning is. And a 20% bonus is a pretty standard bonus, not only in Midtown. In fact, it's considerably less than what's allowed in East Midtown now, but also throughout other high density zones in the city. And finally, I guess, Midtown is about density, and the ecosystem that exists there, which is an ecosystem of hospitality, of retail, of arts and entertainment. In a way that the denser it is, the better it all works together. So that's my ramble. And now, Julio, do you want to talk a little bit about, what it means to the theater to have a rehabilitation like this?
Well, I'd just like to say that this investment, we are building a brand new building. This is very expensive and very expensive proposition. In addition to this full historic restoration here, we aren't just changing seats. I mean, we're doing fine historic restoration, which was approved by the Landmarks Preservation Commission and has been endorsed by the Landmarks Conservancy. So we're just not doing sort of basic maintenance here. These are real structural improvements to the theater, in addition to dealing with the aesthetics of the theater to preserve it in the way that was initially sort of constructed. So it's a big economic and financial proposition here. As it relates to the theater itself and the theater industry, we see it as something that is really going to be a symbol of our resurgence. And so right now we are very clear and very focused that we want to do the project in a high quality way. And we've hired the best consultants, the best architects who've done this work in the past. And the rehab bonus provision has only been utilized twice before. And I think we have to be very clear here that this is a very complicated and very onerous process. And that's why it's only been used twice before. And we've been working on this project for close to 6 years to make sure that we address all of the issues. City planning had asked us to hire third-party consultants, the best theater consultants in the country, HRNA, to look at this in an independent manner and verify that the improvements that we're making or proposed to make to this theater really merits the bonus. And I think there is no argument that we merit the maximum bonus because we are going above and beyond what the zoning resolution asks.
Okay, I have one more question and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Keith Powers. Look, we know that tourism is down in New York City. Broadway's been affected, but so has the hotel industry and hotel workers. And they're also going through extremely difficult times. It's critical that when the hotel industry comes back, that it comes back with having the ability to give good middle-class jobs to New Yorkers. We just can't afford a hotel district that is not going to be able to accomplish that. So what are you doing to ensure that this hotel will provide true economic benefits to New York by providing good paying jobs?
Our employees in our theaters, they're union employees. They live in the Bronx. They live in Brooklyn. And so we hire a lot of folks that are middle class, lower class New Yorkers from economic perspective. And so as it relates to the hotel, they're building their own hotel. We are building and expanding our theater. And if this action isn't approved, to Paul's point, this hotel is still going to go up. The only entity that's really hurt here is us in our industry if this application doesn't move forward. And we need to upgrade this theater. We need to show the world that we're coming back. And this is very straightforward, and we're very dedicated to presenting a first-class project. So we hire folks, union labor. Our construction is going to be union labor. So we're ready to put our money where our mouth is as it relates to this project.
I just want to add, the truth is, and it's not a truth that I really want to say, but it needs to be said, is we have a contractual relationship with the hotel. We have advised them of the issues that are associated with jobs at the hotel, but we can't force them to do it. If there are unacceptable conditions put on this special permit, then they have they have the ability to walk away from the deal. So it's not something that we have a lot of control over, unfortunately.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for taking my questions. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Councilmember Powers. Hold on, Keith.
Thank you, Chair Moya. Thank you. I was waiting to be unmuted. And Happy New Year to everyone. And thank you for the testimony. And thank you to the Chair for the opportunity to ask some questions here. Nice to see everyone as well. I'm going to talk about the theater, then I'll talk about the hotel site as well, since we have a couple of components to this project. Before I said so, because I just wanted to follow up with Council Chair Moya's question here. Who is representing the hotel and the developer here in today? This is all reps of the core theater. Is that fair to say, Paul? And
that's correct. We are we are all representing the theater.
Okay, because I do think it would have made sense to have somebody here who's part of the transferring site as well, since they are a beneficiary of this project as well. But let's go to the theater as a starting point. You guys touched upon this a little bit in your testimony, but can we talk the modification you're making here, or let's start with the actual theater bonus. You mentioned some sites that have taken advantage of this in the past. Can you just talk to us about which sites have taken advantage of this bonus in the past, when they did it, and let's start there. Who and when has taken it?
Sure. I'm not sure I can give you
two. It's pretty narrow.
Yeah, there are only two. I'm not sure I can give you the dates, Council Member, but the two were City Center and the Samuel J. Friedman Biltmore Theater. The City Center was very early. It was a 128,000 square foot bonus. I think it may even go back to the 1980s or 90s, because it was the building that produced the City Center Tower with the dome that whistled. For betraying my age by showing this. City Center included about 10,000 square feet of new space within the existing building. Within the building, the apartment and office building was being constructed. So there wasn't a separate annex as we're doing and putting in 15,000 square feet. They just set aside 10,000 square feet in the existing building. It expanded the box office and restored the lobby. We're doing those things in a historically appropriate manner, and we are also tripling the public lobby space. We both projects have significant building infrastructure upgrades, and both projects enhance the commercial viability of the theater by creating conditions that would allow a greater variety of productions. So, we looked at this. The consultants who City Planning asked us to retain, Fisher Dax and HRNA, and HRNA looked at this, and they felt that what we were doing was at least as significant in terms of the work that's being done and the improvements to the theater as was done at City Center. Samuel J. Friedman, which got a 131,000 square foot bonus, involved it involved taking a theater that was pretty run down, pretty broken down, and restoring it to full theater use. But it wasn't a historic restoration. It was a restoration, a normal one, which is much easier. It made improvements to the theater's accessibility, it improved audience amenities, and it improved the capacity of the theater to handle a wider variety of offerings. It also repaired the structural damage and reconstructed the non-landmark interior. We are also doing a significant amount of structural work on the stage house and an enlargement to the cellar of the court, which falls in, we think, the structural category, in order to make it more commercially viable. We're constructing an entirely new annex, and we're restoring the existing interior and exterior of our theater, which is a landmark, as opposed to the Samuel J. Friedman, which is not an interior landmark. And I just want to quote from the report by HRNA and Fisher Dax. Relative to these two precedents, the proposed improvements at the Court Theater are significant, and the project is similarly, if not more, aligned with the zoning resolution's bonus criteria. So, we think we not only do we meet this test in the abstract, but we meet it in relative terms as well.
Okay, and just a follow-up question: how many other sites would this be applicable to? The text changes you're proposing.
The text change, we looked at this, and Adam, if Adam may know the answer to this, I'm going to ask him to speak up if he does, because he may be more familiar with the details of the EAS, which was environmental assessment, which is where this all came out of. I think there were theoretically 4 or 5 other sites in the theater district to which this applied, and all of them either had theaters that had sold off their development rights for a new large office building or hotel, or were in one case it was the Palace Theater, which, as you know, is the theater that's being elevated one level and being put really in a completely new box. So in the real world, this text change in terms of applicability isn't going to make a difference for another 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and maybe not even then, but it does have theoretical applicability beyond this.
Meaning that one of the 4 or 5 other theaters at some point in time could decide to take advantage of it. The real world scenario that you envision right now is that none are in a position to take it. Is that
that's correct? They've sold off all their development rights. Those development rights are in large, modern buildings that are not, that it just makes no economic sense to demolish at this point.
Okay. And one of the questions that was raised as a community board was changing the definition of this to strike out the word interior, to make sure that this was I think it sounds to me like sure, that it applies here. Can you just talk about whether, that change and why the need for it? The community board had raised that as a concern that or thought
Sure.
that this applied absent having to do that change. And so can you tell us why you think it's necessary here?
Okay, so this is one of these things where I think we felt we understand where the community board's coming from, that you can make an argument under the existing text that the annex constitutes a structural alteration or something to that effect within the meaning of the existing text to justify the bonus. We were not comfortable with that. We thought it was the kind of interpretation which somebody might think is good today but not so good tomorrow. So we felt it would be better to clarify the text to allow for so the things like the annex, which are very important actually which are very important to a theater like this, because without the annex, almost none of this would be possible, or certainly it wouldn't be possible to the extent that it is. So we thought it would be helpful to clarify it, and we thought it would be helpful to encourage people to think about doing this with regard to theaters. I should say, I was never, maybe I should have thought about it a little harder, but it was never quite clear to me why the community board raised this issue as a problem. Our position has been consistently, and I think, is that if city planning or the council did not want to make this change, that would be okay. it would be very helpful. It's helpful by itself that you're approving this special permit, which involves the annex under a statute that, just talked about interiors. So that would be good. As a lawyer, I would like to see something in the legislative record that I could, put in my file and have, give to other people who are going to be doing this, an indication that the intent wasn't to preclude bonusing things like the annex. It was only to ensure that, that the bonus was subject to the tightest appropriate restrictions that it could be. So the answer is, if the council didn't want to do it, certainly you're the council, you can do whatever you want, but it would be great if you were to make a note somewhere in the record that it wasn't intended to preclude bonusing things like the annex.
Okay. And what is the timeline for the theater from, what is the anticipated, I should say, timeline of a theater being completed and reopened?
Julio, do you want to, or John, do you want to talk to that?
I can speak to that. We are anticipating, once the project starts, a 15-month timeline to get the work done.
15 work. Okay. So sometime in 2022.
Mid 2022.
Mid 2022. Okay. And what's the timeline for the hotel construction?
As we understand it, the hotel is going to be substantially completed sometime this summer.
So they're underway right now, and
they've been building for a long time.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why
structurally they're topped out. They'll soon be doing interior fit out. They're well along.
But they're waiting on some answer here, aren't they? About or they believe they have alternative options to.
That's why they did the backups.
Okay.
They bought the backup air rights because they wanted to be covered in the event that either we didn't get the bonus, we didn't get the full bonus. Nobody got their act together, and there would be no public hearings for another 6 months or something because of COVID. So they didn't know, and they had to cover themselves.
Okay. So you mentioned Times Square Edition earlier, which I have to note is now closed, I believe, the hotel, which is nearby, if I'm correct. And I think one question I have is just feasibility of they're not here to talk about it, unfortunately, developer, but we are seeing this industry being decimated right now. I have hotels in my district that are converting or closing. I believe closed. And I think folks would certainly wonder the feasibility of doing a large scale hotel. I think this is am I right saying this is 650 rooms? That
I don't know offhand. Adam, do you know?
I think it's around 600.
Okay. So it's big. It's big. It's a lot of rooms, and we have hotels that are downsizing in my district, right down the block from where I'm sitting right now. We have other ones. So what is the feasibility? What is I guess the question here is, did we start a project that was no longer going to be economically feasible based on the current proposed size, or have unoccupied space inside of it based on what we know about COVID, changes in tourism, and maybe even oversupply? So what is the answer to that question of providing such a large scale size hotel right now at a point where we are in a situation where it's hard to see when folks are occupying those rooms in the near future?
I think that one, I'm going to duck it. I don't know. I'm not sure who the Schubert organization is any better equipped than I am to answer it. I just don't think we know. That's not.
We don't know. We just don't know.
I know. Sadly, they should be here, right? I think the developers, they should be here alongside you guys to help answer some of the questions.
I think the entire hotel industry is obviously just like our theaters, so it's really nobody knows. We don't have that crystal ball. The other party decided not to participate, so we're here to show the merits of our project, and we want to, do the right thing.
Do you know if they've given consideration of different use, or maybe even selling the property at some point based on the current conditions?
We haven't had those conversations. We're focused on our project.
Okay, and okay. I'm just going to close out. I'll echo what, what the chair said as well about they're not here. And we all know the merits of your project, I think are clear, and the support for it and the need to revitalize an industry that has been similarly decimated during this industry. But, we also all want to make sure that the economic development projects we're working on, like yours, deliver economic benefit for people that are there as well. And we do hope and to be able to talk to them about that as well. Let me ask this question, and I just want to ask this on a more broader. So we'll continue that conversation, and I appreciate the chair raising that question, that issue as Earl. I know, frankly, in our conversations, you share that goal too, but you're not this other party to this. So the last question I ask is just on a broader scale here. Broadway has been decimated, it's closed, shuttered. A little, adjacent to the project here, but maybe Julio or someone can talk to us just about the state of industry right now, and when do you guys anticipate? We know when you might reopen in 15 months, but is that, just any sort of sense of where Broadway is right now?
We are doing everything we can to work with any groups that we can to make sure that our facilities are safe. We want to open right away. And just to be very clear, we are one of the largest drivers of tourists to the city of New York and to occupants of Union hotels. And people come to New York to see our shows. And so we are all here together. So I just want to be very clear in that regard, but we are looking at all kinds of ways to make our theaters safer. And, we want to open up our theaters. I mean, people are dying to come to our theaters, so we are working really hard. And in fact, we have some members of the Broadway community, the Broadway League, who will be presenting testimony today in support of this project.
Okay, thanks. And when do you think Broadway shows are live again?
I think that is subject to conversations with the governor. We are just geared up. When they say we can go, we're going to go.
Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll continue to talk about some of the issues that were raised here today. Thanks for presenting. And I know it's been a tough year for your industry, and we're all thinking about it, and all the industries we're talking about here today. And so, vaccination and recovery need to happen at warp speed here to help, New York City get back on its feet. Thank you. Thank you to the chair for opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Powers. I now invite my colleagues to ask questions. If you have questions for the applicant panel, please use the raise hand button on the participant panel. Now I ask our council, are there any council members who have any questions?
Chair Moya, Councilmember Grodenchik has a hand raised for a question.
Sure. Turn it over to Councilmember Grodenchik.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you to the applicants. Just a quick question. What is the total value? If you said this, I'm sorry if I missed it, but the total investment that you're making in the Court Theater to bring it back to change it, to bring it back to its former glory?
Our budget is approximately $40 million.
Okay. And that takes care of everything in the Court Theater itself?
Yes, the entire project.
Somebody testified that you'd be using union construction labor there?
Correct.
And do you have, I know you're not the applicants for the hotel. Do you have any idea what their value is? If not, we'll find out. Okay, I saw that nod of the head. I guess that's a no. So I appreciate. Okay, I think the chair and Councilman Powers covered everything else that I would have asked. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barry. Are there any other council members with any questions?
Chair, I see no members with questions.
Thank you. There being no further questions, the applicant panel is now excused. Thank you again for your testimony today. Councils, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on the Court Theater application?
Yes, Chair Moya, we have approximately 6 public witnesses who have signed up to speak. For members of the public here to testify, please note again that witness panels will be called in groups of up to 4 names per panel. If you are a member of the public who has signed up to testify on LU items 712 and 713 for the court theater proposal, and as you hear your name being called, please stand by and prepare to speak when the chair says that you may begin. Please also note that once all panelists in your panel have completed their testimony, you will be removed as a group and the next group of speakers will be announced. After you have completed your testimony and your group has been removed, participants may continue to view the live stream broadcast of this hearing. We will now hear from the first panel, which will be Charlotte St. Martin, Elizabeth Baker, James Claffey, and Jessica Vaudour.
Okay, just a reminder, members of the public, you will be given 2 minutes to speak. Please do not begin until the Sergeant at Arms has started the clock.
The first speaker will be Charlotte St. Martin, who will be followed by Elizabeth Baker.
Time starts now.
Good morning. I am Charlotte St. Martin, president of the Broadway League, which is the trade association representing Broadway and commercial theater in New York and across the country. We're here to speak in favor of the improvement of the historic court theater. These improvements will make critical enhancements to the theater that will make it better for ADA theater goers, and all theater goers will receive better accommodations and better facilities. The theater will enable the artists and creative staff to better deliver the award-winning shows that the theater will host, while not disturbing the historic building's essence. As Broadway is a critical economic driver for New York City and is responsible for over 97,000 jobs in the city and gives an economic impact to the city of almost $15 billion with a B, it's important that we maintain the quality of our industry and facilities to retain the most important theater location in the world. What we do impacts jobs in the most critically hit industries in New York, including hotels, restaurants, attractions, and tourism overall. As Julio said, people come to New York to see a Broadway show, and then they stay in the theaters and so forth. We must protect this asset to the city. During the times of economic challenges for our city, the capital investment will create jobs when the city needs it most. It will send a message that Broadway is coming back in top form, and especially for this darling theater. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, Charlotte.
Next speaker will be Elizabeth Baker, who will be followed by James Claffey.
Time starts now.
Good morning, Chair Moya and members of the subcommittee. My name is Elizabeth Baker, and I'm SEIU Local 32BJ's Director of Bargaining and Employer Relations for the New York metro area. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. On behalf of SEIU Local 32BJ, I want to express our support for the Schubert Organization's initiative to improve the court theater. Given the economic challenges facing the theater industry in the pandemic, projects that will maintain the viability and vitality of Broadway institutions are essential. This initiative is meant to invest in the future of the court theater, and it's a chance to ensure that one of our bedrock cultural institutions can come back even stronger after the pandemic. The physical improvements that the court plans to make to its facility as part of this rezoning will provide an improved experience for staff, artists, patrons, and pave the way for the theater to thrive in years to come. Among the many benefits it provides to our community, the court theater is a source of good jobs for working New Yorkers. Local 32BJ represents the facility cleaners and security officers at the theater who make family-sustaining wages with excellent health benefits and a defined benefit pension plan. The Schubert Organization has a track record of responsible employment and of working in partnership with our union to meet the needs of our members. Our court cleaning members, like many Broadway workers, are currently laid off due to the closure of the theater. And we see this project as a key helping the theater get back on its feet, invest in the existing workers, and create additional good cleaning jobs that will flow from the expansion of the footprint of the facility. This application is an opportunity to rejuvenate a treasured Broadway theater and protect and grow good jobs that it provides for working people in New York City. And we respectfully ask that you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker will be James Claffey.
Time starts now.
Good morning, council members and to the chair. I'm happy to be here in support of one of Local One's real substantial employers, a Shubert organization. Local One of the IATSE represent 3,600 members in the theater community in New York City, as well as 150,000 members as an international vice president of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. There's no secret that our industry, as I heard one of the council members say, is decimated at this time. I think a real revitalization of the court theater, which is frankly a cultural gem for our industry and frankly of the city of New York. I think it goes hand in hand, hopefully, with the resurgence of the Broadway community and frankly the theater community throughout the city of New York. The court theater is one of the theaters that we obviously service. It's got while it's really a significant part of our community, it has its challenges, and those challenges are frankly every day that we have a show and we have an obligation to put on a show and to load the show in and to put it into full operation. And those challenges are many. Those that are addressed by the representatives of the Shubert organization will remedy those challenges, which gives us a better opportunity to provide the service on behalf of the theater goers, our employer. It's a safer environment. And frankly, you know, when you have producers looking for theaters to put their shows, you know, our house crews, whether it's the stage crew, wardrobe, hair and makeup, box office, the Teamsters and otherwise that services theater, they want a real opportunity to get a show. And the producers are going to look at a theater that has its grandeur, and the court theater needs that. The court theater needs to be able to compete with the other theaters. My apologies, is that my time?
If you can wrap it up, that'd be great.
Local One and the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees are in full support of the application, and we would urge you to consider that with our thanks.
Thank you, James.
It appears that Jessica Vodor is unavailable or has left us. So Chair Moya, that was the last speaker on this panel, and you can see if there are questions for this panel.
Thank you for your testimony. If any council members have questions for this panel, please indicate by using the raise hand button. Council, do we have any council members with questions?
No, Chair. Excuse me, Councilmember Powers has his hand raised for the panel.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for your support and your testimony. Thank you to the Broadway League and others who I know are going through a lot, and Local One. I just asked this to the theater as well, but just wanted to, maybe Mr. Claffey, this is maybe for you. If, we'll get you unmuted. You're unmuted.
Yes, sir.
And I know that this has been I'm Mr. Claffey, I'm sure this has been a difficult year for your members here. When do you anticipate your members will be going back to work, and what are, you know, what have they been doing during the pandemic, if anything?
To be fair, I'm going to have to echo what Julio from the Shubert organization said, and Ms. Martin will likely, on behalf of the employers, have a better indication from their view. Local One is ready right now to go to work, and I think that the response about the governor's mandate, the vaccine, all hand in hand, and then frankly, what the producers and the theater owners think, you know, will solve the audience, the theater goers' concerns of sitting next to each other after the vaccination and after the mandate is lifted. So my answer is I'm hoping sooner than later, but if I was to give you a real date, I would not be, I've been misleading you. Our hope is we'd like to start tomorrow. But I think Ms. Martin has a better idea of just what that may be. For our purposes, I think it's just a real recipe that needs to be put together for it to happen.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And just one last question. This is for, of course, Ms. St. Martin and the Broadway League. It's nice to see you and as well. Just wanted to ask just quickly, the federal government obviously passed a new package here that included some relief for the Save Our Stages legislation, which we've all been advocating for some period of time with Senator Schumer and others. Can you just give us a quick overview of how you think it impacts the Broadway industry and whether you think it's sufficient, and also whether the terms of it sort of meet what the industry was asking for?
Sure. We advocated strongly with Senator Schumer and the strong bipartisan group that introduced the bill, the Save Our Stages bill. And what it's geared to do is to help us get back open and hopefully stay open long enough when we know that attendance will likely be down and we'll be adding significant costs to having people in our theaters. So while this won't spur new investment in Broadway, it will hopefully help us get open, get all of our employees back to work, as well as all of the restaurants and hotels around us, helping get them back to work. The Small Business Administration will be taking this bill and developing the rules and regulations in the very near future. So we don't know yet from a detailed perspective what the criteria will be, but we do know that shows that had been running for a year prior to the shutdown will have an opportunity to apply for forgivable grants to help us get back open. And the bill is primarily geared to those that lost 90% or more of their revenue. And as you know, Broadway was the first industry out and will be the last in. So there are significant losses at the 90% level and the 70% level and all of that. But we do hope that it will help the theaters be able to make the changes that are required from a COVID perspective. We hope that the bill will enable producers the opportunity to get people back to work. They've all spent all of their advances for the most part, so they will have to have rehearsals that may last as little as 2 months, and for newer shows up to 4 months, and they're going to need to market and get people back. And I could keep going, but that's probably more information than you want. We are hoping that by mid to late summer, we will be back rehearsing and opening our theaters in the fall. And if there were a miracle, we like Mr. Claffey, would be ready to go back to work very quickly.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Powers. Council, is there any other council members that have questions for this panel?
No, Chair. I see no other members with questions for the panel.
Thank you. There being no more questions for this panel, the witness panel is now excused. Thank you for your testimony today. Council, if you can, please call up the next panel.
The next panel will include Andrea Goldwyn, who will be followed by Christine Nicholas. Andrea Goldwyn.
Time starts now.
Okay, we're gonna mute you. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good day, Chair Moya and council members. I'm Andrea Goldwyn, speaking on behalf of the New York Landmarks Conservancy. The Conservancy supports this application to improve the Court Theater, an individual and interior landmark designed by famed theater architect Thomas Lamb. We were pleased to testify in 2017 at the Landmarks Commission, which led to an LPC approval of this project. At that time, we noted that restoration of the court's French neoclassical facade, including the windows, doors, and marquee, will enhance this institution. Work at the theater's rich interior will improve fixtures and finishes, such as murals and plaster ornament, and bring back the rose and gold color scheme. It will also revive the glory of the proscenium with its unique art glass detailing. The new annex is set to provide services and amenities which are considered standard to contemporary theater audiences, such as ADA accessible restrooms and circulation space, and those which theater productions use, including increased backstage and rehearsal space. The proportions of the facade are in line with those of the theater, and its modest contemporary details provide an appropriate background to this exquisite landmark. Alterations to the interior in order to integrate the annex are minor and will not detract from its character. The LPC designation report refers to the court as one of the theaters that has come to personify American theater, and that its presence helps visually to define the Broadway Theater District. This project, coupled with the services that will be available in the annex, will ensure the court's continued survival and success. The Schubert organization has always been an excellent steward of its landmark theaters. We appreciate the continued work on this project during this difficult time, and we value the Schubert organization's faith in the revival of Broadway and the city. We urge the council to support this project. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Conservancy's views.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Christine Nicholas.
Time starts now.
Thank you, Chair Moya. My name is Christine Nicholas, and I'm testifying today on behalf of the Broadway Association, of which I chair, in support of the Schubert Organization's land use application for the Historic Court Theater's rehabilitation and expansion. The Broadway Association is a 110-year-old nonprofit organization dedicated to the cultural and economic betterment of Midtown West, which comprises the Broadway Theater District. The association works together with other civic, cultural, and business organizations to foster a climate that has ushered in the development renaissance within the community and also serves as a resource of support during these unprecedented times. In its current state, the Court Theater is hampered by deficiencies impacting the public's experience and limiting the potential of the cast, crew, and staff. It lacks patron amenities such as adequate public restrooms and accessibility. The lobby and box office areas are crammed and do not allow for social distancing, and the tight backstage and wing spaces limit the work of stage crews and set designers. Given the current economic realities inflicted on the Broadway industry, it is more important now than ever to rally behind initiatives that will restore the vitality of the most important cultural and economic assets of New York City. New York City won't be back until Broadway's back. Realizing the fully restored and expanded Court Theater during these difficult times will send a clear message that Broadway and New York City will be back stronger than ever. And if you recall, following the events of 9/11, the Broadway Theater was reopened just 2 days after the attack, sending a strong message to the world that New York City was stronger, back on its feet, and remained open for business. We can do the same with this. The Broadway Association enthusiastically supports this dynamic project and will be a catalyst in reviving Broadway and creating opportunities for all New Yorkers. We ask that you vote favorably in support of their application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chair, we're now able to, I believe we are now able to bring back Jessica Vodor on this panel. The next speaker will be Jessica Vodor.
Time starts now.
Morning. Thank you very much. My name is Jessica Baker-Vidor, and I testify today as the Vice President of Operations for the nonprofit organization, the New 42nd Street, and we share our full support of the Schubert Organization's initiative to improve the historic Court Theater. By allowing the full restoration and expansion of the Court Theater, you will have an opportunity to support and celebrate one of New York City's most important cultural assets. Founded in 1990 by the New York City and State, New 42 was originally created when the city and State of New York entrusted the new 42 to restore 7 historic 42nd Street theaters between 7th and 8th Avenues. Facing a recession that stymied other commercial development in the area, New 42 adopted a bold plan supported by enlightened public officials that revitalized 42nd Street and the Broadway district. As stewards of the historic theaters of 42nd Street, New 42 has an intimate knowledge and authority on the facilities necessary to serve a modern theater audience. And just as the new Victory lacked space within its original footprint to accommodate public accessibility and mobility needs, the Court Theater must also find creative solutions to improve the health and safety and comfort of its audience members, its casts, its crews, its lighting designers, theater staff, and anyone else involved in the production. The landmark Court Theater will benefit enormously from these significant improvements, such as a newly accessible audience restrooms, additional lobby space, accessible dressing rooms, and improved air circulation, which is critical at this time in our industry's history. All of the contemplated improvements to the Court Theater are crucial for it to thrive as the premier Broadway house that it should be. We enthusiastically support this dynamic project that will be a catalyst in reviving Broadway and creating opportunities for all New Yorkers. And in that spirit, we urge this committee to support this essential project before you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, that is the last speaker for this panel. You have the opportunity to ask questions of the panel. Council, do we have any council members who wish to ask the panel any questions? No, Chair, I see no members with questions for the panel. There being no more questions for this panel, the witness panel is now excused. Thank you so much for your testimony today. Council, can you please call up the next panel? If there are any members of the public who wish to testify on LU numbers 712 and 713 for the Court Theater proposal, please press the raise hand button now. Participants joining by phone who wish to testify on LU 712 and 713 are asked to use the *9 buttons on your keypad to raise hand. And the meeting will now stand at ease briefly while we check for members of the public. Chair Moya, I see no other members of the public who wish to testify on this item. Thank you. There being no members of the public who wish to testify on LU numbers 712 and 713 for the Court Theater proposal, the public hearing is now closed and the item is laid over. That concludes today's business, and I would like to thank the members of the public, my colleagues, the subcommittee council, land use, and other council staff, and the Sergeant at Arms for participating in today's meeting. This meeting is